262. The Silent Majority and Decapitalization. Chalcedon Report Number 60, August 1st, 1970. Our concern this month is with two supposedly dissimilar subjects, the myth of the silent majority and decapitalization. The two are actually very closely related. The myth of the silent majority is not a new one. It has been widely used for almost 2 centuries by right, left, and centre politicians. The basic feature of this myth is that all our problems are created by a small, evil minority, whereas the majority are good people and are simply misled. All the publicity and press is controlled or filled by news of this evil minority, and the good majority are silent. Who this evil minority is depends on the person propagating this myth. It can be a group of revolutionists, radical students, or a race. It can be capitalists or communists. It can also be a conservative organization or a church. The myth works all the better if some evidence exists that there are some communists or nasty capitalists or any other element which is clearly engaged in subversive activities, rioting, or lawless standards. But the myth is anti-Christian to the core, in that it denies the fact of sin. According to the Bible, man's problem is sin, and in every race, class, and group, sin is a central problem. Our problem today is that the vocal minorities and the silent majorities all over the world are rebellious against God and His laws, so that we need to pray from our hearts, in the words of the General Confession. We have followed too much the devices and desires of our own hearts. We have offended against Thy holy laws. We have left undone those things which we ought to have done, and we have done those things we ought not to have done, and there is no health in us. There is neither absolution nor grace in confessing other people's sins, and yet this is the essence of the myth of the silent majority. Our bodies are always exposed to a variety of diseases. We fall prey to them when our general resistance is weak. Similarly, every body politic has always been exposed to a wide variety of subversions. It never succumbs to them as long as its general health remains. If the infection, the subversive minority, gains a foothold, it is because the body, the silent majority, is weak and unhealthy. With this in mind, let us examine the class structure of society. Here, one of the most important studies is by Edward C. Banfield of Harvard, The Unheavenly City, the Nature and Future of Our Urban Crisis. Boston, Massachusetts, Little Brown, 1970. Banfield sees classes as an inescapable aspect of every society, and he divides society into 4 classes: upper class, middle class, working class, and lower class. The important thing about Banfield's work is the way class status is identified. The individual's orientation towards the future will be regarded as a function of 2 factors. 1. Ability to imagine a future, and 2. Ability to discipline oneself to sacrifice present for future satisfaction. Page 47. As Banfield observes, it must again be strongly emphasized that this use of the term class is different from the ordinary one. As the term is used here, a person who is poor, unschooled, and of low status may be upper class. Indeed, he is upper class if he is psychologically capable of providing for a distant future. Pages 47 and 48. Many men of great wealth are basically lower class. They have no orientation to the future. The upper class has a personal and broadly social future orientation. The middle class is similar, but of more restricted vision. The working class's future orientation is limited to very personal factors: a comfortable home, a new car, or the like. The lower class has no future orientation. It does not plan. Things happen to him. He does not make them happen. Page 53. Outside the lower classes, when poverty occurs, it is the result of external circumstances, death of the breadwinner, illness, involuntary unemployment, or the like. Even when severe, such poverty is not squalid or degrading because standards are maintained. On the other hand, lower-class poverty, by contrast, is inwardly caused by its psychological inability to provide for the future and all that this inability implies. Page 126. Let us now analyse the implications of this analysis of class structure. Very obviously, the old monarchies and nobilities fell because they had ceased to be a true upper class and had become lower class in mentality, geared only to the moment and its pleasures. The entrepreneurs who gained the ascendancy in the new society were thus not, quote, middle class, end quote, but a true upper class, men with a future-oriented vision for themselves and society. The United States was settled by men who, however humble their English origins, were upper class by virtue of their vision of the future. Many of the immigrants who arrived were similarly upper class in vision. They left their native lands in terms of a future-oriented vision. The United States, usually cited as the great example of a middle-class culture, probably had, from the colonial period well through much of the 19th century, an upper-class orientation perhaps unequalled in history. A Christian faith which is geared to victory and the establishment of a Christian law order is future-oriented. No other religion has been capable of creating a like progress, because none other has the future orientation of biblical faith. A future-oriented people capitalize the civilization. They work in terms of a goal. They forego present pleasures for future gains. Their entire life and activity is geared to capitalization, and the family becomes a major instrument for capitalizing society. Today, however, the mood of modern man can best be described as existentialist. It subscribes to a philosophy in which the, quote, moment, end quote, is decisive. It is not future-oriented in that it does not plan, save and act with the future in mind. The existentialist demands that future now. Some of the causes which concern student rebels may be valid, but their existentialist demand that the future arrive today makes them incapable of capitalizing and planning. They are, instead, capable only of decapitalizing a culture. Existentialism requires that a man act undetermined by standards from the past or plans for the future. The biology of the moment must determine man's acts. Very briefly stated, existentialism is basically lower-class living converted into a philosophy. It is, moreover, the philosophy which governs church, state, school, and society today. The, quote, silent majority, end quote, has perhaps never heard of existentialism, but it has been thoroughly bred into it by the American pragmatic tradition of the, quote, public, end quote, or private schools. Our basic problem today, all over the Western world, is that Western civilization no longer has a true upper class at the helm. Future-oriented men no longer dominate society, politically, economically, religiously, educationally, or in any other way. Instead, dreamers who are basically lower class, who believe that political power can convert today into tomorrow, are in charge. The result is the domination of our politics by an economic policy which is the essence of the lower class mind and which leads to radical inflation. Spending today with no thought of tomorrow is a lower class standard, and this is the essence of our modern scene. The vocal minority and the silent majority are both deeply in debt, and they create national economies which are deeply in debt. The growing anarchism of our social life is a product of this same lower class mentality. This popular anarchism is a refusal to submit to law and discipline, an unwillingness to accept any postponement of hopes and dreams. It is closely related to the tantrum of a child who demands that his will be done now. Every major social agency today, church, state, school, and home, is dedicated to creating this anarchistic, lower-class mentality. The need, thus, is for a new upper class, a segment of society dedicated to a future orientation governed by biblical faith. This means establishing new schools, free Christian schools, new churches, a new society in terms of our own readiness to live in terms of a broadly future-oriented purpose. The quote, public end quote, or state schools are shaping a large new lower class, and the universities are finishing schools for this new lower class. The Christian schools are shaping a new upper and a new middle class. The purpose of Chalcedon is to further the thinking and scholarship of a new upper class, of people geared to the future and dedicated to godly reconstruction. To return to Banfield's book, Banfield cites two groups in American history which have had the strongest future orientation, the Puritans and the Jews, and both had it as long as their perspective was still coloured with the belief that God summons man to work for the realization of God's plan for the future. Page 57. Biblical faith has been basic to American progress, to future orientation. On the other hand, a characteristic of a decaying social order is that men decline and become more and more lower class in character. The women then provide whatever future orientation the society has. Among American Indians, too commonly, whatever stability a home has is provided by the woman. Among blacks, the woman, again, is usually the member of that family who does whatever planning and saving there is. In American society at large, the same fact is increasingly the reality. The woman is provident, plans for the future, is politically, economically, and religiously concerned, whereas the man has a rather lower class absorption with the moment. A society in which men surrender leadership and lack a practical vision of the future is in serious decline. Thus, the new barbarian is not merely in the slums. He is in the schools and universities, in business houses and factories, in the church, and in the home. In their study of The Lonely Crowd, 1953, Rigsman, Glaser, and Denny showed that man today has become consumption-centred rather than production-centred. The group is now the source of morality and the framework of reference. The emphasis is thus more on morale than on morality. Man is other-directed rather than inner-directed, and the group has taken the place of God as the authority. What these men were describing was simply the development of the lower-class mind, and we are beginning to see the shape of a world dominated by such a mentality. This lower-class mind has been some years in the making. It will take time and effort to shape a new mentality. It is necessary to work, therefore, while there is still time. The cause is recapitalization and reconstruction. These are frustrating times for any man with a practical, future-oriented character. Our world is geared to the present. When Lord Keynes was asked about the long-range consequences of his economic policy, he gave us his answer. In the long run, we are all dead. This is a classic expression of a lower-class perspective. How then can a man plan for the future in a world that insists on living only for the present? How, when our politics, economics, religion, education, and all else expresses a lower-class worldview, can we assert again the priority of God's law in the future? We begin by planning our own lives and assets in terms of the certainty of the collapse of any order that denies law and the future. We establish new institutions, churches, schools and agencies. There are beginnings of new medical associations standing in terms of principles. We need new associations of professional men to oppose the present link between humanism, the state and the professions. There is a need for new insurance companies that will insure doctors who break with the AMA and stand in terms of biblical morality. From where you stand, what can you do? You can join the lower class and eat, drink, and try to be merry, for tomorrow you may die. Or you can plan for yourself, assist others in their planning, and work to create again a future-oriented society. If a future-oriented, upper-class society is to be established, you will have to do it. The federal government never will. To look to politics for the answer is a mark of the inferior mind. It is time to upgrade ourselves before the judgment of God flunks us out of history.